Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for episode 11 of the Bad Batch Devil's Deal. So this one, I would say, is my least favorite episode. Also, BB-8 today is our guest. I just found it boring. Like, of all the episodes, I've enjoyed every single episode. Like, everyone says, for sure, especially after the very first episode, episode 2 definitely slowed down a bit. But I really enjoyed episode 2. I was like, okay, so they ended up finding someone that they could trust. They went through the process of learning about the credits. Like, it was a small element of that where, actually, that's really where the whole conflict came from, that they literally could not leave the planet because they had to make fake IDs and stuff, and Republic credits and all that stuff came in. So they still introduced something. And this one, they technically introduce the conflict that obviously the Bad Batch will eventually be involved in, I would assume, in the second half of this story. But this kind of bored me. And don't get me wrong, I love a great throwback where I'm like, oh snap, they said, Syndulla. I'm like, I know who that is because, of course, I watched Star Wars Rebels. And there are a lot of people who didn't, which I would love to get the perspective of someone who has not seen Rebels, which I think is a lot of people. Because in the hierarchy of, all of Star Wars, obviously it's most people movies. Then after that, it comes, really, it's Clone Wars, like not counting like comics and stuff like that. Even if you do count the comics, I would say it's probably Clone Wars. And then it's hard to say. Comics might actually have more people. More people may have read may read the comics than have actually seen Star Wars Rebels. I'm not 100% sure about that. Obviously, I don't know all the numbers, but in the hierarchy of like things people watch, movies, Clone Wars, Rebels, Resistance. That's just how it's always been. Holiday specials, way over there. That's just how it's been. A lot of people did not see Rebels. A lot of people didn't even watch Clone Wars. Like, I know that there are some people that are watching The Bad Batch that still have not seen the final season of Clone Wars or have watched Clone Wars in general. So it's a whole mixed bag of people that are watching The Bad Batch as its own thing because it does stand alone for sure. And so I'm like, those people, I know the character. I know who Hera is, and I love seeing Hera, and I love seeing Chopper. I believe it's a different actress. I should have looked up the name, but of course she's younger, so like it makes sense if it is a completely different person. But there was a part in Rebels where it was very specific. It was like one part in the whole series, or like maybe two parts, where she speaks kind of in a different accent because it was her kind of getting more in touch with like her past and her lineage, and she just kind of spoke in a different way for a second. So I was like, that could be the same person because I remembered that scene. So I never, like I said, I didn't look it up, so I don't know 100%. I was like, it makes sense if it was a different person. It felt weird, but at the same time, I'm like, this is like the young child version of this character. Like, she's not going to sound the same. It was just like, oh, that just feels super weird because of Rebels. But I know who Hera is. I know who Chopper is. I know the story of what happens with her family. I know why she hates the Empire, all that stuff. And it was great to have that introduction. Except it was done in such a boring way to me where I'm like, this is cool, but I want to see the Bad Batch because that's the show I'm watching. I want to see the titular characters who, of course, show up like more than halfway through, I think, and it's, drop off weapons. And, of course, they'll show up in the second part where, they're going to provide support. But I was just like, I don't like this as much. It just wasn't that entertaining to me. And also, even the episode in itself was kind of a dull episode. Like, aside from like the very ending where there was action, the rest of the episode really was just all talking 100%. And that can be okay. I just think the fact that it wasn't the Bad Batch talking and seeing those characters develop, considering, of course, they're the main characters. If this was Hera's show and it was like, or, even if it was like a flashback episode, it would fit a lot better within the context of, Star Wars Rebels, because it would literally be a flashback of kind of the day things officially went wrong between, the Syndullas and, the Empire. That would have fit better there. With it being this thing that seems so detached from the Bad Batch, and obviously, I know exactly what's I think we all know. They're gonna go ahead and they're gonna tie in more in the second part of this story arc. But it was still kind of boring to watch, going through it, because I'm like, it's cool. Once again, it's like, oh, that, for me at least, for a lot of people, like I said, I'm excited to watch some reviews, and hopefully some of those people haven't seen Rebels, just, I guess, that's kind of, selfish on my perspective, because it's probably worse for them, but, I would like to hear those perspectives from people that did not actually watch Rebels, but it was just kind of boring to me. Like, I felt like nothing really happened. Even as they were going through it, it was kind of this element of, obviously, Hera is kind of caught between two opposing ideas. You have her father, who's like, all right, we need to trust the Empire. The clones came in and they helped us out. He kind of has that relationship with one of the clones, which was a great suit of armor. Like, I don't know why, but I was just like, I never even thought of that. But like, just that little bit of like the turquoise, that looks super sweet to me. I thought that was a great design for a great painting scheme for the outfit. But he comes in, he has more will, or kind of more power, speaking power at least, with the people, because of whatever happened. He was more in the trenches compared to like the senator or whoever the other dude was that just gets used for bait at the end anyway. And so the people kind of rally behind him. It's like, look, they came in to help us. When we were gonna get wiped out, the clones came in to help us. So we should be good. We can lay down our arms. So like, there's peace now. Like, we're good to go. And that's how he felt, and that's what he wanted. And then of course his brother-in-law is like, I don't really trust that. They were supposed to leave once the war was over. And he even says like, I won't stand around as more clones come in here every single day. And so I like that idea. And obviously his wife is in the same element, because when Hera got busted, she mentions exactly where she was. She was like, I never said where I was at. It's like, I got my ways too. And it's like, oh, so she was, she was in on it. But I like that element. Like, so she's this girl who's caught between the opposing ideas of her family, where it's like, her father's on one side of the spectrum and her mom and her uncle are on the other side. And obviously her uncle is the one who's actually going out and doing these things. And I like the way it was handled, for sure. But like I said, it was just the fact that it felt so weird and out of place that, I thought for sure, I was like, okay, they can easily do this and have like 5 minutes of the episode, because they're only 26-minute episodes. 5 minutes without the Bad Batch, I could have easily seen that. Whereas like, they have that introduction and we get to see that happen, and then it didn't even have to be the stuff where they show Sid. Like, it could have been kind of like this, where it's just like them going to the planet, just to help out, even if it wasn't just to drop off weapons, but like to actually help out. Or maybe they had a different mission, and then they decide, okay, we're dealing with another crappy thing that's happening with the Empire, because the Empire sucks. Crosshair happens to be there. That was another thing. I thought for sure, once they left, I thought that's when the Bad Batch was coming in. I was like, okay, they're going to kind of do it where it's like, the first half is without the Bad Batch, we get all the context and everything, and then the second half, they're going to be involved. Because Crosshair attacks the ship, and I was like, oh, okay, so this is how this is going to happen. They're going to meet someone. I'm like, it's going to be the Bad Batch. They're going to come in, they're going to be spying on them or whatever, and they'll be like, oh, my buddies are here. Let's take them. Let's just wipe everybody out right now, because trust me, I got to take them down. But that doesn't happen. He doesn't even realize they're there. They just track them to do that mission, because their mission is set on the planet to be like, we know what they're about to do. Let's just get them for, gun running pretty much. And I was like, okay. And then they, the Bad Batch leaves, and I was like, oh, okay. I thought they were gonna like get involved, and it was gonna get even more chaotic, because obviously, Hera got kind of her uncle was kind of a douchebag about it. Like, he clearly didn't care that much about her well-being, as far as like everything that he cares. Obviously, like, that's his whole point, is that he cares about his people. But I was like, he really shouldn't be getting her involved like that. He even pulled the classic, I was gonna let you do this thing, but you don't want to come today, so I guess I'll take off. I was like, it's kind of a dick move. Like, he knows he's doing something that's super illegal right now. All he had to do was just go do that and come back and not F with her. And then, of course, that's really what led to the whole situation, was that she was there, because that's why her parents decided to fight. If it was just, her uncle, and her mom would have been like, dang, my brother got busted and I want to help him, but also it's my brother. Like, he knew the risk. With Hera, though, it was like, that's my daughter, and she's kind of been dragged into this. And they, of course, hit it with the, they already going to try him for treason and imprison him and all that stuff. So it was the perfect plan. They had them set from the very beginning. Like, once they knew Hera was involved, they had him. It was like hook, line, and sinker. It was like, well, they're screwed now. They got the guy. Kill the senator off, arrest the dude. And it's like, well, I don't know how they're going to explain that, by the way. I guess they don't have to. It's just going to be like, well, he died. Or maybe he will twist the story and say that Hera's dad did it. But obviously that wouldn't work with the people. So I don't know what his plan is there, really. Because I was like, once he killed him, I thought he was going to try to have like a crazy shootout and stuff like that. I was like, well, everyone else is a witness. And so I don't know what they're going to do. Like, they can just keep them locked up and not say anything anyway. But obviously something has to happen, because they're going to be like, well, where's our senator at? And also, where's the Syndulla, like the heads of the Syndulla clan? They're all just missing now. So there's going to be some questions. They're going to have to come up with, some BS in the next episode. But I was like, okay, the action for that scene, very cool. The chase was cool. He was hitting them with those harpoons like it was nothing. I was like, it was oddly kind of gory, but it wasn't gory. It was just visceral. And I was like, it was mostly because every time he did it, he was throwing them like straight at their heads, and he kept knocking their helmets off. And I was like, just the helmets coming off makes it seem like they're dead to me, because I know that that's a spear that he's throwing, and it knocks the whole helmet off. And I'm like, those helmets are pretty weak. Like, let's be honest. Stormtrooper armor, clone armor, it's all the same. Like, one blast and you're dead, and it's like, okay, that was a waste of time. Why'd you even put that on? So aside from Hunter, who can survive a shot, everybody else is dead. So when they were getting hit with those, I was like, that's super effed up. Like, I think they died. I think he killed them. But also, it is what it is. Now, the big question that I have is, what are they going to do with the clone trooper? I don't know if they're going to actually make something special happen, but there was like that one scene where he was like, she's just a kid. And I was like, he's kind of in that same vein where it's like, they did Order 66, but that's for the Jedi. And like that, I never really considered that concept before. Like, once Order 66 is all said and done, like they've wiped out the Jedi and all that crap. Other than that, the clones are still just the clones. Like, they can still have feelings for other people. And I was like, I didn't think of that before because we've never really seen it. So after Order 66, he can still have moments, just like Rex or Echo or anybody else, he can still have those moments. He just wouldn't have it for Jedi. Like, if a Jedi showed up, it would just be like, kill, kill, kill. But he could still be like, well, that's just a kid. Like, he could turn. I doubt it'll happen. But he could technically have a moment where it's like, I know this dude didn't do anything bad. Like, and clearly he wasn't involved with it. Like, he was looking around. Like, he looked at the dude after they shot the senator. He's like, what? I wasn't involved in this. What's happening? Like, you can tell that he wasn't as evil as the other, bad guys around him. So I'm like, that's interesting. They could do something with it. They might not. But it seemed like there was some possibility for them to kind of mess around with that. Like, despite Order 66, there are still clones that can do good things because, technically, because they're not Jedi, so they don't have, like, the inhibitor chips going, buck wild. But then again, with the Bad Batch coming in, it could just instantly trigger again. It's like, oh, you've disobeyed Order 66, and then, that's it. So we'll see what happens. But it seemed like they were hinting at, like, some slight potential. Like, the dude took it, once a clone takes their helmet off, and they don't have the same generic haircut, it's like, that dude's important. He had some speaking lines. That dude's pretty important. So they could do something with that. They might not, but I was like, it seems like there's some possibility, and I think that'll be a cool thing to touch on. But obviously, we'll just have to wait and see. But all in all, despite the rest of the episode, or despite the ending, I should say, I still didn't really enjoy the rest of the episode. I was like, I feel kind of bored with this because it's not the titular characters. We aren't seeing them go to this planet and deal with this stuff themselves, which we will in the next episode. But at least I hope we do. I've been saying that this whole review, but I don't technically know that. I would assume they do because it's like someone's going to call in favors or something and it's be like, we'll definitely need more guns. We could even use actual support if you can lend it. And then Sid, of course, will send the actual Bad Batch to them. And so that's how they'll get involved. But I could be totally wrong. Like, that could just not happen. I doubt they would do that 2 episodes in a row. But they did it for 1 episode, and that was bad enough. So I don't know. I don't know why they thought this was a good idea. As much as I love Hera, and it's super cool, it's like they officially had an interaction with both halves of the Rebels relationship there. So I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. They met Kanan, and they also met Hera in this episode. But I just don't know. It just wasn't that fun to me. I was just like, it's, aside from the ending, like, even if it's talking, it can be entertaining. But the talking was with characters that like I said, if this was Rebels, I would be fully invested because I'm like, oh, this is her story. Like, they really should have put it in there because, like, technically it's almost like an exposition dump where it's like, this is exactly what happened. Like, when we see her home, it's a full-on exposition dump. Like, there are no flashbacks. It's just like, this is what happened. And she just tells you the whole thing. I would have actually liked to have seen this in Star Wars Rebels. Like, if we actually saw what happened, this would have been a great episode. I've been like, it was a slow-paced episode. I would have been fine with that. But it would have fit for what they were telling. For it to just be like, poof, here's episode 11, and it's just Hera's story. I'm like, that came out of nowhere. And it wasn't like the cameo was the Bad Batch. I thought it was going to be like, okay, they're building up this story, in the beginning, and then the Bad Batch will come in. A lot like the Separatist thing. I thought it was going to be just like that, except more of an actual battle where, like, they actually end up helping the people, which, once again, hopefully, that'll be next week's episode. But this one was just slow, and I was just like, I'm disappointed by this one. And it really sucks because I'm like, I love callbacks. I love throwback references to where I'm like, I know who that is. I want to see this story. I wanted to see the actual elements that led up to, kind of that dark past for her. And just to have all that given to me after a super long time, it's weird. It's like, it's been so long since I wanted that. I'm just like, I don't care about that anymore. It's weird to even have it. So it's kind of messed up where I'm like, I really wanted that. It was good what they told us. They told us the story. But yeah, this is what I would have wanted to see from Star Wars Rebels. And now we just randomly get it here. And I'm like, cool. But I know they could have done this in a much shorter, faster way to have the Bad Batch come in. Because it's just a weird way to do it. No matter what, it's a weird way to do it. Even for people like me who know who Hera is and know the story and are interested in seeing the exact fall of everything that happens. Sure, it's cool, but it ain't that cool. You know, I mean, granted, if they did end up doing this on Mandalorian, that'll be different. Mandalorians, you know, they've been my favorite even before the Mandalorian came out. They were always my favorite part of Star Wars, so it was just like, that'll be different. I could take that, and I'd be like, you know, that's weird that that wasn't in Rebels, but it's also Mandalorians. It's more entertaining. This, however, not so much. It just wasn't. And then, like, if it was, I don't know, more suspense, maybe I would have enjoyed it a bit more. But it just was like, yeah, it was kind of just going on. It literally just felt like another episode. It was just like, yeah, it's just an episode of things just happening, and that's really it. Like, it literally felt like an episode. It almost felt like a backdoor pilot, if anything. Like, this made me feel, I was like, are they doing a flashback Hera show or something? Because that's what it really felt like. Was this was a backdoor pilot for a Hera series, which, you know, they're doing a million different shows. That might be one that I missed, but I don't think I did. But I was just like, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But clearly, I didn't enjoy the episode in itself. The story, sure. 5, 7, however long ago that was for Rebels, it's been a minute. However long ago that was, I would have loved this episode. It would have been a great, slow-paced episode for sure, but it would have fit way better because it's like, oh, Hera's story. Hera's showing up out of nowhere, and her family was cool for like the first 5 minutes because I'm like, oh, they're going to tie into Hera and her backstory and these characters that I kind of know. Like, I know Hera, but like her parents aren't really there in Star Wars Rebels. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then it kept going, and I was like, this is going for a long time to be like, you know, like I said, like the cameo that I was expecting, and now it's super long, and the Bad Batch was in it for like 2 minutes, 3 minutes maybe, if even 3 full minutes, and that just felt weird to me. So I would love to know your thoughts. Obviously, I didn't like the episode that much, and it sucks because it's not that it's a horrible episode, it's just a bad episode to put here. That's like the whole problem with it. It was just that, and I guess that technically makes it a bad episode. Like, this is literally an episode that should have been in Star Wars Rebels. 100%, that's what this should have been. Just as a flashback, and it could have been, the end of this episode literally could have been the ending, and then it goes back to present day, and it's like, and that's kind of what led to the destruction. We just see the actual kind of really slow beginnings kind of play out, and then she can kind of just talk about the rest, and like, and from there you can imagine how things went, and then, you know, they show her home and stuff destroyed. And so it's just interesting. It's just like, oh, okay, that's not really what I was expecting. So, was disappointed in the episode. I really hope I like the next one a lot more, which all it has to do, honestly, is just bring in the Bad Batch, because that would do a million things. Crosshair is there. All they had to do was just be like, Crosshair saw the Bad Batch, whole episode, 100 times better. Because I was like, that's all I was waiting for. I was like, okay, they're going to go out, they're going to meet the Bad Batch, Crosshair's going to see them, it's about to get crazy. Here's your guns, and then they left. I was like, it's not as crazy as I hoped. Next week, we shall see. Would love to know your thoughts on this one. I feel so messed up saying it, but it just was a bad episode to have here. And that's the thing, because I'm like, I would have loved to have had this before, but just having it here now, it's weird. Like, you can have so much information you want, but if you get what you want in the wrong way, it's just like, well, that just sucks. That kind of, I haven't really wanted that for like 5 years. Like, Rebels has been off for quite a while now. So, I don't know. It was just super weird to have that. But we'd love to know your thoughts on this episode. So, please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it. Obviously, the big question of today is, did they screw up by doing this? Did it feel like a backdoor pilot? Because it really did, having like everything based on Hera, which is super weird. Because I'm like, she has her story. I know this is her as a kid, but I'm like, she has her story and everything. So, it just seemed weird to me. But want to know your thoughts on that. Where are we headed for next week's episode? I think this is the one that's really going to take a bashing online. So I'm kind of excited to check it out just to see what people think about it. And I hope more people enjoyed it than I did. I just was like, man, this was a Star Wars Rebel episode that should have existed back then. And right now it just feels weird. It feels super out of place to have a whole episode and the team shows up for like 3 minutes to deliver some guns and then they leave. They could have shortened up everything. Have like one conversation with their dad. Time skip. They do it like they could be on the ship and explaining that like they're going off to meet someone or whatever. And like they could have shortened the whole thing and just had the Bad Batch in there and just skip to some of the stuff that I'm hoping for sure is coming, you know, in the next episode. But it is what it is now. I watched it. We saw it. I would like to know your thoughts, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching. I should note, most of the time I'm super happy. If this is like your first review, if you even got this far, because I've been rambling for almost 20 minutes now on how much I didn't like this episode, typically way more positive. I actually really like the show. This is the only episode where I genuinely was like, I don't like this episode. I liked every other episode that people seem to despise. Some people despise the whole series, but I really enjoyed the show. This is the one episode where I was just like, this ain't it, Chief. This ain't it. But we'd love to know your thoughts, like I said, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.